Hey, stop! Stop! Stop right now!
The autopsy report shows that 19-year-old Brooke Deviney died from asphyxia and blunt force trauma to the head.
It was Father's Day morning in Columbus, Ohio, June 16, 2024. A nightmare was unfolding. The early morning sun had barely touched the streets when neighbors heard screams piercing through the stillness. Moments later, the echo of chaos carried across the building corridors, as if the walls themselves were silently pleading for help. When police officers arrived, they rushed up the stairs with urgency, having received a chilling domestic violence call at 7:28 a.m.
Does it sound like our caller is this like secondhand?
She's texting in through the 911 text exchange.
What's wrong, sir?
They were prepared for yet another violent dispute, something tragically common in their line of duty. But what they found that morning was something that would haunt them for years.
I think he's back at the house. He got some screaming inside.
I think he fucking killed my sister!
Where's your sister? Is he inside? Is he inside?
No, he dipped. I don't...
Where's your sister?
She's upstairs in her room. Upstairs to the left, it's the door in the right. He killed her.
He's not here, but his brother.
The video is blurred as soon as the officer goes inside, but you can hear crying in the background.
Maybe 1018, stand by.
Oh, baby!
Get out, please.
Start
at 20.
I tried doing compressions. I couldn't.
Officers tried to revive her as paramedics arrived, their commands loud and desperate, but there was no saving Brooke. By 8:45 a.m., she was pronounced dead at the hospital. Blunt force trauma injuries had ended her young life and the future she carried. As police searched the apartment, their radios crackled with urgent updates. Witnesses had seen a man fleeing the scene moments before officers arrived. A massive manhunt ensued. Police officers combed nearby neighborhoods, searching alleys, abandoned buildings, and wooded areas with K-9 units. Hours later, they found him.
Hey, stop! Stop! Stop right now!
Get on the ground! Hands behind your back! What's your name? Devin? Devin? Yep. Stand up, Devin. Stand up.
I have you want to move me. It is the suspect.
He was taken into custody, silent and subdued, as officers cuffed his wrists and led him away. A man whose violent history had finally culminated in the worst possible ending.
On your feet. Use your feet. Start walking. Start walking.
Jesus.
Stand up. Stand up.
Y'all gonna work for it. I don't want to be on the stretcher. I want to make it easy for y'all.
Oh, so we're gonna work for. We'll strap you to the stretcher then. I don't give a.
What's your name?
Sands 2893.
What's your
Wednesday,
address?
Thursday, Friday. 120 Marconi Boulevard.
All the way left. Yeah, I should have busted my head on your thumb. I caught your butt. Good. I'm on side. Yeah, I'm on side.
Side.
Wheels on that side.
Wheels on the head.
2 and 2. Ready? 2 and 2. On that side.
Yeah, we both have.
DB, grab those caught. There you go.
Kick that air on.
Yes. Good.
Back right.
All right. Get in there. You're right. Yeah.
This is the story of Brooke Deviney, a young woman who died on Father's Day morning, leaving behind a family shattered, friends traumatized, and a community demanding justice. Brooke T. Deviney was born into a modest family in Ohio, surrounded by people who loved her deeply. Her relationship with 23-year-old Devin Blair had always been rocky. They met in Columbus, and at first he seemed charming, protective, and supportive, but soon his possessive nature began to show. The first incident of violence wasn't public. Brooke confided in her friends about his sudden outbursts, the yelling, the harsh words, the way he would grab her wrist just a little too hard when angry. But like many victims of domestic violence, she held on to hope that he would change. In the days leading up to her murder, Brooke had filed another police report. This time, it was about an incident where Blair allegedly hit her and threatened to kill her. She told officers that he strangled her, and she feared for her life. Brooke tried to stay strong, focusing on her baby's future and hoping the legal system would protect her this time. But fate had other plans.
And some new information about the death of a pregnant teen allegedly killed by her on-again, off-again boyfriend back in June. The autopsy report shows that 19-year-old Brooke DeVinny died from asphyxia and blunt force trauma to the head. And the report also shows that DeVinny suffered a traumatic brain injury back in March with lacerations to her head.
He had a well-documented history of violence against her. That violent history included choking, beatings, threats to kill her, and even holding a knife to her throat. And despite all of that, he remained free until she was murdered. Now, according to reports reviewed by the Columbus Dispatch, one of the most serious earlier attacks happened in December of 2023. On December 28th, Devin smashed the windshield of Brooke's car. He forced her to strip before dragging her by the hair and holding a knife to her throat, saying, "I'll kill you." When officers caught up with him, Blair punched and bit one of the officers in the head during the arrest. Devin was charged with felonious assault, strangulation, assault on a police officer, and felony domestic violence, and he pleaded guilty to 2 of those charges on May 16th of 2024. But somehow, even after pleading guilty, he was actually allowed to walk free.
The morning of her murder, something triggered his rage once again. Investigators believe an argument started early, escalating quickly as Blair's temper snapped. Whether it was jealousy, control, or simply another violent outburst, no one knows for certain. What is known is that he unleashed his anger on Brooke with no mercy. For Blair, this was about power, a final act to ensure Brooke would never leave him. As Blair fled the apartment complex, residents saw him running down stairways and into the streets. Police set up a perimeter and began an intense manhunt. K-9 units scoured alleys, yards, and wooded areas nearby. Hours passed with no sign of him. Residents were warned to remain vigilant. Fear gripped the neighborhood as they wondered what else he was capable of. The news spread quickly, shaking the community to its core. When Blair was finally located and arrested hours later, he showed no resistance. Police cuffed him and led him away, his face emotionless, as if what he had done was just another argument. Another day in his chaotic life. Brooke had filed reports of being strangled, beaten, and threatened. Protective orders were issued, but none were enough.
The Columbus Dispatch reports that Judge Michael Holbrook released Devin on a $10,000 recognizance bond, meaning he didn't have to pay anything up front to remain out of jail ahead of sentencing. Judge Holbrook ordered him to wear an electronic ankle monitor and stay away from Brooke. The judge even expressed hope at the time that Devin would comply with his release terms, saying, quote, "I'm taking a chance. Don't disappoint me." That chance didn't last long. Just days later, on May 31st, Devin's bond was revoked for violating his release conditions and failing to participate in a pre-sentencing investigation. A warrant was filed that same day in response to the violation, but it would never be served. Devin attacked Brooke 2 more times. On June 12th, just 4 days before her murder.
Each time, Blair found a way back into her life, manipulating her with apologies and empty promises, until the cycle of violence ended in death. This crime is not just about a murder. It is about a system that failed Brooke repeatedly. It is about the silent epidemic of domestic violence that claims lives every day, often unnoticed until it is too late. Brooke's story is now a painful lesson of what happens when warning signs are ignored and victims are left to fight their battles alone. As soon as Brooke DeVinny was pronounced dead at the hospital on June 16, 2024, detectives from Columbus Police Department's homicide unit took over the case. They arrived at the apartment on Parkwick Drive within hours, securing the scene with yellow crime scene tape fluttering in the summer breeze. Neighbors gathered at their doors and windows, silently watching as investigators carried in evidence kits, cameras, and forensic supplies. For them, the reality was setting in. A young woman, pregnant with a future she never got to live, was gone forever. Inside the apartment, detectives found signs of a violent struggle. A small living room table was overturned. Picture frames lay shattered on the floor. Brooke's phone, cracked and bloodstained, sat near her body. Investigators photographed every inch of the apartment. They retrieved surveillance footage from nearby apartment cameras, hoping to capture Devin Blair's movements before and after the crime. The footage showed him arriving early that morning, entering Brooke's apartment, and then fleeing shortly after the 911 call was placed. His pace was hurried but not panicked, as if he knew exactly what he had done and had no intention of staying to face the consequences. Detectives also began interviewing neighbors. Many said they had heard arguing for weeks, with Blair visiting often despite the restraining orders against him. Some recalled seeing Brooke with bruises, but she would dismiss them with excuses about clumsiness or accidents. Others spoke of the night before her murder, how she seemed tense when carrying groceries inside, looking over her shoulder as if checking for someone following her. As forensic investigators processed the scene, officers worked on locating Blair. His name was immediately broadcast on police radios, describing him as a dangerous suspect with active warrants for prior domestic violence incidents, including one involving Brooke, where she reported being stabbed and strangled. The urgency was heightened when officers learned he had previously threatened to kill her if she ever tried to leave him. Finally, later that day, Blair was found hiding in a nearby neighborhood, disheveled, tired, and silent. He was arrested without resistance, his hands cuffed behind his back as officers led him to the patrol car. Back at the station, detectives conducted lengthy interviews with him. Blair showed little emotion as he recounted his version of events, claiming that he and Brooke had been arguing and that she just wouldn't stop yelling.
I ain't wanna come, you forced me down here and I'm down here. Give me a you think I'll give a y'all shut up.
Counsel, on behalf of the client.
They went to the next of kin of the family, no further electronics and no weapons listed involved the same prosecution.
He denied intending to kill her, suggesting it was an accident during a heated fight. But the injuries told a different story. Medical examiners confirmed multiple blows consistent with an intentional assault. The blunt force trauma was severe enough to kill her almost instantly. Her unborn child never stood a chance. Detectives also reviewed Brooke's prior police reports. Just days before her death, she had filed a complaint stating Blair hit her and threatened her life. Earlier reports included incidents of strangulation, stabbing, and psychological abuse. Friends told investigators that Brooke had tried to leave him multiple times, but he always found a way back into her life, using manipulation and threats to keep her silent and compliant. The investigation quickly built a solid case for prosecutors. Evidence included the autopsy report, crime scene photos, witness testimonies, and Blair's history of domestic violence with Brooke and other women.
I definitely understand probably how she was feeling, like just lost and like there was no one to help protect her.
She dated Devin Blair for several years as a teenager.
I don't know if I would call it love, but at one point I thought it was.
She says the abuse started slowly, but escalated.
He would choke me out until, I would pass out. He's put the cigarettes out on me.
Over the years, police would come by their house, but Abby says she never felt safe enough to tell the truth.
They would tell me, unless you actually, then, there's nothing we could do. And, he would also be right there. So, that's terrifying.
Finally, in March 2021, Abby knew something had to change. She was 19 and Devin was 20. They were visiting her grandmother's grave when Abby says Blair assaulted her and bit her face.
It was really super bad and I was really scared.
She says he made her promise not to tell anyone. When Blair went to a friend's house, Abby went to the police department and filed a report. Like Brooke, she was pregnant with his child.
I need to get in my head, I have to find a plan to get out or I'm not going to be here anymore.
Detectives worked with domestic violence advocates to ensure Brooke's story was heard fully in court, highlighting the repeated failures that allowed Blair to remain free despite multiple violent incidents. The community watched closely as news stations aired footage of Blair's arrest and court appearances. People asked themselves the same painful questions. How did this happen again? Why was he free despite the danger he posed? And how many more women are silently living in fear, waiting for the help that never comes? For detectives, the investigation into Brooke's murder was not just about seeking justice, it was about exposing the broken system that failed to protect her. It was about ensuring that her name would not just be another statistic, but a wake-up call to a society that too often ignores the cries for help until it's too late. After his arrest on June 16, 2024, Devin Blair was held at the Franklin County Corrections Center, initially issued an $11 million bond.
Are following some new details this afternoon. The man accused of killing a pregnant woman is now being held on an $11 million bond. 10 TV cameras were in court as Devon Blair faced a judge just hours ago. He has a history of domestic violence. He was arrested several times in the last 6 months. He also had a warrant for his arrest issued just 4 days before the homicide he's accused of committing. Records say 19-year-old Brooke Devaney called police several times on Blair but died Sunday morning. Blair is expected back in court next week.
His first court appearance was tense and heavy with grief. As Blair entered the courtroom in an orange jumpsuit and shackles, his eyes barely met anyone's gaze. Family and friends of Brooke Devaney filled the benches, clutching photos of her smiling face, their eyes red from days of crying. Prosecutors presented a chilling summary of the charges: murder, felonious assault, strangulation, involuntary manslaughter, domestic violence, and tampering with evidence. As each charge was read, Blair stood expressionless, shoulders slightly hunched, looking down at the floor. For many in the courtroom, it was the first time seeing him face to face since the brutal killing that ended Brooke's life and the life of her child. The prosecution laid out their preliminary evidence: the violent history between Blair and Brooke, her multiple police reports detailing strangulation, beatings, stabbing, and threats to kill her, and the events of Father's Day morning that ended in murder. They presented the autopsy findings showing fatal blunt force trauma and defensive wounds indicating Brooke had tried to fight back in her final moments. Her phone records showed desperate texts to friends days earlier, confiding that she was terrified of Blair and feared he would kill her if she left him. Meanwhile, the defense requested that Blair's bond be reduced, arguing he was not a flight risk and that the killing was an accident during an argument. They portrayed him as a troubled young man who snapped under emotional stress, not a premeditated killer. But the judge rejected these arguments. Due to the violent nature of the crime, prior domestic violence convictions, and the danger he posed to the community, his bond was revoked and replaced with a no-bond order. Blair would remain behind bars pending trial. Over the next few months, hearings focused on procedural motions and evidence admissibility. Prosecutors fought to ensure Blair's prior domestic violence incidents with Brooke and other partners could be presented to establish his pattern of violent, controlling behavior. The defense countered, arguing that prior bad acts were prejudicial and unrelated to the specific murder charge. Court records revealed further chilling details. Just weeks before Brooke's death, Blair had violated protection orders multiple times. Despite her reports and his outstanding warrants, he remained free, highlighting systemic failures that allowed him continued access to Brooke. Prosecutors emphasized this in court, painting a grim picture of how the justice system repeatedly failed to protect a young pregnant woman from a man who had threatened her life more than once. One particularly emotional moment came when the prosecution played Brooke's 911 calls from prior incidents. Her voice trembled as she pleaded for help, describing how Blair strangled her and threatened to kill her if she ever tried to leave. The courtroom fell silent, except for quiet sobs from her mother as she listened to her daughter's final pleas for safety that were never fully answered.
She filed a police report and a protection order. She said, "Mom, once he finds out what I did, he's going to kill me, Mom." And then he did. He selfishly took her and my grandson away from me.
The defense continued to push for a plea deal to avoid a full trial, suggesting reduced charges of involuntary manslaughter. But the prosecution rejected these offers, stating that Blair's violent history, the intentional nature of the killing, and the death of Brooke's unborn child demanded full accountability. This was not an accident, the prosecutor argued firmly. This was a murder fueled by power, control, and rage. A young mother and her child lost their lives because of his deliberate choices. As of the last court hearing, Blair's trial remains in pretrial status, delayed by legal motions, appeals over bond decisions, and unresolved sentencing in his prior domestic violence case. No formal trial date has been announced, but prosecutors remain determined to seek maximum justice for Brooke and her unborn child. For Brooke's family and friends, each delay in court feels like another wound reopened, A reminder that true closure will only come when Blair is held fully accountable for taking away a life that meant so much to so many. Meanwhile, Devin Blair remained in the Franklin County Correction Center, his charges mounting as prosecutors prepared for trial. Public outrage grew when details emerged about his prior convictions for domestic violence, including the incident where he had allegedly stabbed Brooke months before her murder. Many asked the same haunting question: why was he free? Why was Brooke left unprotected despite her repeated cries for help? Brooke's murder also prompted local lawmakers to propose changes to Ohio's domestic violence laws, aiming to strengthen protection order enforcement and increase penalties for violations. One proposal included mandatory GPS tracking for offenders with violent histories, ensuring victims could be alerted if their abuser came near them. While debates continued in legislative chambers, Brooke's family continued their advocacy, determined that her death would not be in vain. For her friends, life moved forward with an emptiness that could not be filled. Brooke's best friend shared online how she still sends her late-night texts out of habit, knowing they will never be read. Her mother would sit in her room at night, breathing in the lingering scent of her daughter's lotions and perfumes, whispering prayers for justice. As the case moved through pre-trial motions, Brooke's mother began writing letters to her unborn grandchild, letters filled with love and sorrow, letters that would never be read. "I don't know if you would have been a boy or a girl," one letter read, "but I know your mama loved you more than anything in this world." Brooke's death left an unfillable void, but her life inspired a movement for change. She became more than just a victim. She became a catalyst for awareness, a reminder that domestic violence is not just a private issue but a public crisis. Her story continues to echo across Ohio and beyond, urging everyone to listen, to believe, and to protect those who are still trapped in the shadows of fear. The story of Brooke DeVinny is a haunting reminder of how fragile life can be when it's entangled with violence, fear, and a system that too often falls short of protecting those most vulnerable. As the legal process drags on, with Blair still awaiting trial, Brooke's loved ones hold on to hope for justice. They hope that one day soon, he will stand before a judge and jury, forced to hear the pain he caused, and spend the rest of his life behind bars for taking 2 lives with his violence and rage. But even a life sentence cannot bring Brooke back. It cannot erase the memories of her final moments, the fear she must have felt, the desperate thoughts racing through her mind as she fought to survive. Brooke's story is a tragic lesson that listening isn't enough. Action must follow. Systems must change. Communities must refuse to look away. Her legacy now lives through the foundation created in her name, supporting domestic violence victims and educating teens about the dangers of abusive relationships. Her family continues to speak out, turning their grief into purpose, ensuring her name will never fade into just another statistic. And so, as we remember Brooke DeVinny today, let us remember her not for how she died, but for how she lived. A young woman with a tender heart, dreams of becoming a nurse, and an innocent child growing within her, both gone far too soon because love was twisted into violence. This is the story of Brooke DeVinny, a story of love that became control, protection that never arrived, and a final act of violence that took everything from her. May her memory remind us that behind every statistic is a face, a name, a life worth protecting. And may her story push us all to do better, to see the signs, to act before it's too late, and to ensure that no other family has to live through the nightmare her family now endures every single day. If you found this story important, don't forget to like this video, share it to spread awareness, and subscribe to our channel for more real-life cases that demand to be heard. Your support helps keep these victims' voices alive and their stories remembered.